Now it should be. There is a go live button, so I had to press two buttons, and for some reason, now it should soon. Yeah, now it's alive. Welcome everybody. The current audience is not all that great. It's probably just me, but perhaps somebody will watch it later or join later. This time I'm here with tekken-dog and pointman, and yeah, I wrote it in the description of this stream what the purpose of this is, namely, yeah, currently there are uncertain times, and the advice that our grandparents gave us, that doesn't necessarily work for us anymore. And so we cannot just do the same things they did and expect to retire in a nice, comfortable house. I mean, it's possible, and certainly in certain regions of the world, it's more likely to happen than in others. But I think it is worthwhile to reorientate ourselves. And I'm not smart enough to know what will happen in the future, and nobody really is. But I'm pretty sure there are certain factors which are more likely to predict the future than others. And I now have two people here from different ideological backgrounds than me, who can point at biases and blind spots I have, and they can also contribute their ideas. And yeah, that's the goal of this stream series. And the goal of today's stream is I have made some thoughts on what may be such factors, and then we will look at them, and you can also add stuff to the list if you can think of something I missed. And then in later streams we may go into more details on each of these factors. So since we have a new series and a new face on my on my account, we can introduce ourselves. I can start first. I'm Swiss. My education is engineering or electrical engineering, and grew up Christian. And I would say the thing which politically defines me most is like I think decentralized argumentative democracy is the thing I like best. So it should be as local as possible, so that the people who make the rules are actually the ones who have to live based on them. And I want to have argumentative, so I want to have various points of views heard, so that not one side is the ruling one and everybody has to comply. And yeah, democracy, I think I prefer it if all the people involved, or at the very least all the productive people involved, they should be the ones who have a voice in what is happening. So that's politically my perspective. And yeah, why don't you give a short introduction, tekken-dog?
I was also raised Christian in a Christian family, and I'm American, live in the middle of the country in the flyover states that nobody knows how to find on a map. Politically, I'm an anarchist. I think all government is evil because it violates the laws of God. Recently, I've been very obsessed with this money and financial systems and learning how they work, and I think that's one of the big keys to the way the future will unfold is the story of our money and how it's controlled. Um, yeah, that's the key points, I think.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And you, Pointman, you're a new face on this channel and probably even on
Thank you
the
so
internet.
much.
I'm not sure, at least in the content creation world.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a true privilege to be on the podcast, and I'm really looking forward to it. I am Swiss. I have a background in economics, venture capital, and consulting. Um, I identify as a political centrist, which means that for right-leaning people, I am a lefty, and for left-leaning people, I'm right-wing. So that is my destiny. But the truth is that I am a mixed political household. I have some positions that are more conservative leaning and some positions which are more progressively leaning. So I may not have the sharpest of political profiles, but I see that as a strength and not as a weakness.
Yeah, and there is a reason why I wanted you on this podcast too, because there is it's always great to have people from different opinions, and I think I had a few conversations with you, and you certainly know how to challenge some ideas I have, and that is something I value. Yeah, and
Well, definitely be kindred spirits and being accused of being left by the right and being right by the left. I get that a lot too.
because of anarchism, or
Yeah, and as soon as I speak out against the current Republican, it's, well, you must be a leftist.
funnily enough, I
Yeah,
don't really get that. People don't really accuse me of stuff. I don't know why, but yeah. Um, have I think both of you generally knew in what direction the topic would be going. Have you made some thoughts for it, or did you just come here and decide to add ideas after I have presented mine?
I did gathered some thoughts. I wasn't sure exactly which direction we were going to go, but just laid out some thoughts of the future, what to look for to see where maybe we were going to land.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty much a blank slate. I've not prepared much, but obviously these are topics that we all care about and we are all emotionally invested in. So I think I'll just chip in spontaneously here, and I'll try to keep it as objective and factual as possible.
Yes. I think a good idea to start is, or to predict the future. I mean, looking at a current discussion between one politician or another or whatever just is most trendy at the moment is not necessarily the it certainly influences the future, at least some of these things. Sometimes something happens which is a breaking point, and then 100 years later people still know of it. That can happen, but most of the times other factors are more important, and I created a few categories which I think may be more important for long time prediction. and one of them I would call raw materials. Like, for example, Switzerland is especially known for being poor in raw materials. I think the only one which we somewhat have is water, but this summer wasn't really a good representative of the because we had a huge heat wave and essentially no rain for a long time. But yeah, other countries are much richer in these raw materials. The whole continent of Africa is a good example, although they tend to outsource the material mining. How voluntary they do that is another question. But yeah, then another one is population. Here, it's different aspects, like population numbers could be one aspect, and historically speaking, China always had huge population numbers for the pure fact alone that they planted rice and had a lot of rain in. And rice has the advantage that you can harvest it 3 times a year instead of 2 times or something like this, if I remember correctly. Then economy is another one which will predict the future in some way, although that one is less geologically predetermined, but still it has an impact. How we will decide now will impact the future. Then technologies. I mean, there is a reason why we learn in history about industrial revolutions. And then politics is also one, but this is politics. But this one is, I don't mean like which person was, I mean, for example, I think certain American presidents, even though they may be at the time the most important person, are not all that influential on the future of the country or of the world, but at the same time, what type of, like, which political power fights which one and stuff like this can have a big impact. So and then ideology. This one I don't really know the word I mean here. Like I think there is a word missing for what I mean here. This is I mean, ideology, religion, worldview, whatever. Like this, just how a group of people view the world, create their values, act on things, and their metaphysics, how much agency they believe they have, and like all these things is I think there is a word lacking in English and also in German about this, what the specific word is. I will call it now ideology, and I think this is also one of these very broad categories of things which influence place. For example, if we had a continent which consistently chooses collectivist, socialist procedures where you have a lot of regulations and also on top of it a lot of corruption, then such a continent would be way less prosperous, even if they have more resources than other countries, other continents which have fewer resources but are more prone to motivate their own people to work stuff out and be productive. So I think this also has an impact. And yeah, these are the big categories which I thought of that may and yeah, Now I'm curious if you have one or two to add here, big categories.
I think any of mine are covered in those broadly.
Mm-hmm. And you, Pointman?
I think there should be enough sort of stuff for this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, and now I guess we can go through and create a few subcategories for these, and then as that's about as far as I've planned for now. When it comes to raw materials, what kind of raw materials would you think are important? I already mentioned water, and I think I don't need to wait for you to say oil or any other energy specific. Then what else do you think is are pretty important ones?
Rare earths.
Rare earths. Yes. Especially if we want to build high tech stuff. And one which I also thought about was fertilizers. I mean, it's not necessarily it's like phosphor and stuff like this, but just the resources needed to create fertilizers. So I think that's correct. Then it's a habitable land. Is concrete one?
I think we have concrete in abundance, right?
I'm not sure. It's probably true. I know people don't want to ship concrete for large distances. So if you want to build many houses and buildings, you cannot really do that in a place where you don't have the raw materials for it. But it's probably something which is doable in pretty much any place.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Although I'm not an expert.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, what about clean air?
Air?
If we're talking about pollution.
The lumber.
Is I want to have two of them. Is I know you're in a wood cutting business, so lumber is important for you. Is lumber still needed nowadays? I mean, I'm
Here it is. Yeah.
I mean, I know you can build stuff and it is more environmentally friendly if you do it, at least in some circumstances. But when I have no clue, I've never been to a big city, or when only as a, I mean, for me, a big city is Lisbon. How is it called in English? The capital of Portugal. I think this one may be the biggest city I've ever been to, and but there, like, I arrived at the airport and drove to the south coast of Portugal. So I mean, I have no clue. But to me, huge capitals or huge or mega cities, I don't think of wood when I hear mega city, but I also don't
No,
know
in the
if.
big cities, it's mostly concrete and steel, but out in the suburbs and most of the small family dwellings, at least in America, are primarily made of wood.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean,
At least that's part of the reason that the people can't afford housing because the price of lumber has went through the roof.
Mhm. I just thought of something. Here next to habitable land and maneuverable land. I mean, I've heard that one of the reasons why Africa is poor and why they haven't invented the wheel was because it's very difficult to trade in Africa unless you carry stuff by foot or or via camel. So there, Europe has nice rivers, and America too, and Asia. But in Africa, the rivers are pretty annoying, I've heard, and also the sand isn't really suitable for transportation, and then the jungle of Africa is also pretty inhospitable. So, and also now with the, for example, Russia, one of their main struggles throughout their history is getting a port for ships, which is not frozen during winter. So this is a pretty important aspect. And also, China is currently fighting or trying to get because all their ports are surrounded by islands which other countries control. It's other countries' water, and then so that means if China wants to go via water to some place, they have to go through some other countries' waters. So maneuverable land is a pretty important thing. Yeah, I think that's certainly more factors than I have written down. And as far as I can tell, I would say predictive for future would probably most important would be water, oil, fertilizer, and rare earths. These are at least these are the ones which I have written down as probably most important for future. And the other four they are also important. Here, so now it sounds like you're also out of things to say here. Then let's go to what?
I got nothing else to add to that category.
Yeah. About population, I would say I tekken-dog certainly knows that I have watched Malcolm and Simone, and I think I've also mentioned it to Pointman in the past, but I don't know if he remembers it. And their main focus is fertility rate and productivity, or more importantly, countries which have both of these. So a country with a high fertility rate but low productivity is essentially a welfare recipient country that survives thanks to the grace of the other countries, but it's kind of not relevant for future. And countries which have a high productivity but a low fertility, they just don't exist in the future. There is a curve. Now I'm curious if I can find it quickly. Oh, is it here? I don't know. No, I think I'm not sure. I would have to look it up later. But there is fertility curve, and essentially, if you have a fertility rate of 1, that means your population halves in about 70 years. And if you have a fertility rate of 0.5, then it is a quarter of your population size in the next 70 years. And I'm not sure if these numbers are correct. There is a bit, and it's way more complicated because the date of giving birth, or the age of giving birth of a woman is in the first third of their life and stuff like this, which makes everything unintuitive. But basically, if you're South Korea with a fertility rate of 0.7, then that means in 50 years you're like the third of the size of the country that you are now, and that then you can be as productive as you want. It's kind of pointless for future. And exactly, these are the most important ones which they talk about. And I think that when it comes to population, I would also add the immigration. And here I would add three categories. One is low skill immigration. Let's first make the high skill immigration. That's the one which everybody wants. Low skill immigration is the ones which certain how are these called again? These people who go to the front line and try to help out the immigrants, that they have a good time and can immigrate. These are for these aid organizations important, and for certain politicians and CEOs probably. And then I would say there is a third category of immigration, and that would be immigration with a motive. For example, Tibet was taken over through that way. So Tibet was independent place, and then China, the neighbor, just made many people immigrate to Tibet, and then suddenly they were half the population, and then they could just vote to be part of China. I mean, it's probably a bit more complicated, but that's what I'm talking about. And multiple countries are at risk of these things. So I would say these are the three factors I have written down. Do you have some other ideas which we could write down here?
Be life expectancy.
What how would you say does that contribute to the predicting the future of a place, or what would be the meaning of a high life expectancy versus low life expectancy?
A higher or lower time preference.
What do you mean with preference?
Like if you expect to live only to 40, you probably more likely to take loans, or I need it now, I got to get it now, and not save for the future because I don't have that much time. But if you expect to live to 90 or 100, you're probably more likely to save, put away some savings so you have money in the future and have something to pass on to children, or take care of yourself more so you have more energy and better health when you're old.
Yeah, I'm not sure if countries with higher life expectancy have a more familial way of thinking. To me, it seems they are more individualistic as well. But yeah, I guess I think that could also be a factor, like how fam or how family, let's say, let's call it, how is family structure being done? Yeah, or how is family structure being lived out? I mean, there are videos on YouTube where they go into how, like for example, when you make all your eldest son inherit all your wealth versus if you split it up, how that impacts society, or like how the or if there is no inheritance at all and stuff like this. I think that also impacts society, or more likely the ideological aspect of things. Do you have any ideas on what to add here, Pointman?
I would have some ideas how to dissect the points that we have already listed.
Yeah.
So, for example, when it comes to fertility rate, it has like various subpoints, such as the marriage rate or the sex rate, dating.
With sex rate, you mean at which age they first have sex, or do you mean how many people do have it, or do you mean, or what do you mean with that?
Yeah, more sort of in the direction of body count. How often? Yeah.
Okay.
How often? Yeah, it's not necessarily body count, but it's how often. Yeah, whether you have sex at all.
How?
Yeah. How'd you say it? The rate of birth control, or the prevalence of birth control, too, factor in.
/ abortion.
Yeah.
I think I've heard the number that in England about as many people have been aborted as there are immigrants. So, which is an interesting. If I remember it correctly, this is an interesting fact. So especially if somebody says, yeah, population decline requires immigration, then it's a interesting side note.
And another subpoint could be infertility.
Yes.
For both men and women.
Uh, and now this is a bit of a touchy point. I mean, I think not anymore, but here incest is level of incest is we in the West don't think of it anymore, but there are certain cultures which have it like 100 times more than we do it in the West. And if they suddenly come here and then they require medical health care due to genetic mutations and rare diseases, then that can have an impact on healthcare costs. So, and also it has an impact on families with families with a much higher degree of first cousin marriage also have a much higher tribalism way of living. And I would say countries which have tribalism, it's really difficult to pull democracy off in such a country. So that would also change the dynamics of which governing structure is most suited for such a place. That's my understanding of it.
Maybe we could dissect productivity a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think innovation would be there.
Yeah. Innovation, then service economy, and then how is it called? Is it blue collar economy? When we like this manufacturing of, I don't know, handles for devices or whatever. Is that?
No, just put manufacturing, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess
You're talking about just like factory workers in an assembly line, or you meaning like skills like plumbing and electricians?
yeah, I split. I meant it more in a industrial level, not in a because you cannot really say this country is very good at plumbing and the other one is very good at electrical installations. That's something which is kind of required to be done locally. I meant more stuff which can be shipped around. And now I split it up into high-tech manufacturing and low-tech manufacturing. Because it makes a difference if you manufacture the newest version of ultra short pulse lasers or whatever versus stamping sheets of lasers into certain shapes. This is a bit of a different. It's not like one can be done in certain skill level places, and others require other places where it's more expensive to hire workers. I personally don't consider management jobs and nursing and stuff like this as productivity. I mean, of course, they do. They can contribute to productivity, and they are necessary jobs to some degree. But if we talk about productivity on a from a global economic perspective, then they do not really contribute to the wealth of, or they do not directly contribute to the wealth of areas, and so I wouldn't count them here. Yeah.
Right. And maybe for life expectancy, we could note medicine.
Yeah, that's important one, yes.
And maybe something a bit more lifestyle-ish, like longevity.
I would say retirement age. Because if people retire at 40 because they can, then that obviously impacts the productivity. And it impacts that fewer working people have to make up for a bigger portion of the retirement aged people. I mean, yeah, I talked about it, but I didn't write it down. The inheritance here. Now, well, you think I will quickly change the language to English because German language doesn't really help here. Do you have something else which you would like to add here, or do you want to go to the next point?
I would like to add something around law, family structure, because if the marriage law heavily favors the woman, for example, men are less likely to marry, and vice versa.
Okay, but I would also add then education. And here I mostly think about Asia because their one universal test for the whole country is, in my opinion, doing what dating apps do in the West, but just on steroids. Like in the West, it's or in the past, each bubble, each social class, each social bubble had their own status hierarchies. Now with dating apps, people have access to other people from a much larger area, and then that means that you have to, since you have much more people to go through, you have to look at them in a more shallow way. And also people who are usually in your league, or like you're, for example, you're the son or daughter of a carpenter and you have to marry somebody, you will probably also marry somebody who is a son or daughter from a carpenter family. But if you now have a list of carpenters and lawyers and on the same app, then you may think, yeah, I know carpenter, but what about the lawyer or whatever? And in dating apps do it partially, but everybody knows they are shit. So that means a good number of people take it with a grain of salt. But in the Chinese education system, with this universal test, there this dating systems status game thing is nationally enforced on everybody, and that's how their future is determined. Your whole family pushes you into it. Everything is just about this one test and this one standard. And now the whole many bubbles which have existed before are now conflated into one. So I think that's in my opinion the biggest reason why in China, South Korea, Japan, the marriage or the fertility rate is that bad. Significantly worse than in Europe and America. Yeah. Let's go to economy. I will now steal a point from, or 2 points from tekken-dog, gold standard, and Bitcoin, bit with T. So I already stole them. You can bring them now. Or what is the raw metal? Or what is the overarching term for like having savings in gold or silver or stuff like this? Here it's cryptocurrency.
Precious metals.
Yeah. By the way, I have not yet found the settings for the language. Besides that, here I have another one. I think that one is a huge issue that at some point will implode on us. The national debt, but I don't know yet how it will work out. Then yeah, another one which I have is number of jobs available. That is obviously also impacting marriage and family structures. And another one, especially if women get all the high status jobs that are non-productive and the jobs which are productive are all shipped overseas, then the women feel like they are such high status people that they deserve somebody who is even higher status, and the men are all in the flyover states, either sitting in their mom's basement or cutting trees or whatever, and then there are just no women around them. That's one aspect. And another one I've heard about, it goes under the term elite overproduction. That I think if a society reaches the point of elite overproduction, then they are not far away from a societal collapse in some way. That's at least a statement I've once heard. And also a mathematical simulation, but yeah, you can simulate everything, so take it for what it's worth. So these are all the points which I thought of when I also wrote down bubbles like housing market, and yeah, let's add them to bubbles. These are all the things I thought of which may predict the future of a country. Can you think of other?
Trade.
What?
Trade.
Trade. What is that?
The exchange of goods and services between countries.
What is it? Is it a word I've not heard of? Is it like this or?
No, T-R-A-D.
Trade. Yeah, I
Trade,
just
sorry.
didn't understand you properly. Yeah, trade, certainly. Do you mean more what products? What kind of products we can export? And these are the two things which I would split it up in. Do you have thought of something else? Oh,
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Dependencies. For example, if you depend for oil on a certain, let's for example bring a hypothetical where a country were to be buying all their oil from Russia and at the same time wanting to sanction Russia. That would be such a dependency I think of here. Or Switzerland can. I think the number is about 50% of the population we can feed with what our farmers produce. So that would also be a dependency. But this is not dependency on one specific person, but or one specific country, but instead on just generally somebody who can produce food. And since we have money, we can just buy it at a higher price than poorer countries.
Think standard of living would fit in here, or do you think that'd just be part of life expectancy?
You mean what about standard of? I think standard of living. To me, that is more of an outcome. Or how would you say standard of living is predicting or causal to the future of a place? Isn't it more of an outcome?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, I think in a small way it can be a predictor or a causal thing. I think one of the reasons why there are rich and productive people in Switzerland as opposed to other places is because our standard of living and social safety is higher than in other places. And so even if they could go to, for example, Dubai or whatever, they don't go there because they prefer to be living here. So it can have an impact, but I think the impact is minor.
Well, if you want to predict the economy, you have to add investment, consumption, and government spending. These are the four components, together with trade, that make up GDP.
GDP, let's make it like this. This is trade, in investment, government spending, and what was the last?
Net exports. And net exports are defined as exports minus imports.
Mm-hmm. Is this? I've heard that some people say, yeah, the life is better now because of GDP, and then but it's to some degree manipulatable. Would you say how good of a predicting factor is the GDP? Is it generally good, but with caution, or is it a solid gold standard on how to do things, or what would you say is the usefulness of GDP?
It's a great question and a big debate among social scientists and scholars of the humanities. So there are people who say that GDP is the standard of human well-being. If the economy does well, most people do well. Whereas others say no, GDP is extremely flawed, because suppose a house burns down and then the house is rebuilt, the rebuilding adds to the GDP. If I break a window and that window is then being repaired, the repair increases GDP. So that is sort of from an accounting point of view, this is the critique. And then there's more fundamental criticisms, such as GDP does not capture happiness. And therefore there is now in the Kingdom of Bhutan, GDP is no longer the measure of well-being. Instead, it is the GNP, the gross, not the GHP, the gross happiness product.
Mm-hmm. What happiness?
Happiness, yes.
And how do they measure happiness? I think that's even more difficult to measure than the well-being or the material well-being of people.
I think they run surveys.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I managed to solve the language question. Now I can. Yeah. Good. Should we go on to the next category?
Yes.
Good. Technologies. Here, I think a very transformative one, although in some way a huge bubble, is LLMs. It's a bit difficult to predict how. I mean, they will be important and change everything, but how they will do it is a question. I think in some ways we way overestimate what their capabilities are, and in other ways we way underestimate their capabilities. And so this technology is important, then I would say generally production. That's and if you, for example, let's say production monopolies, for example, if one country is specialized in iron manufacturing and it can do it the cheapest and the best, then it is this is the advantage of this region over other regions. Or if you are the best country in creating computer chips, then everybody will make sure that you are safe and stuff like this. Then this is the place which Swiss ranks top, if I'm not mistaken, namely innovation. We all here is a bit of an overlap with the economy. Then I would say in the coming in the next few decades, self-reliance of countries will increase again in value. I I I think globalization will reduce in the in the coming decades, and so countries which are not reliant on other countries will have a better chance. Um, then yeah, connected to innovation would be education. These are the ones which I do. The ones which I wrote down.
So in terms of concrete technologies of the future, I'm thinking about quantum computing.
Um,
Robotics.
robotics. I'm not so sure anymore about quantum computing as I have been in the past. They
Yeah,
yeah,
you know more about it than I do.
it is possible that I know more about it. I don't know all that much about it, but to me, it seems like they are promising. We're almost at the breakthrough, and it will do wonders, and certain things will be calculatable instantly, and there is math behind it on why that should be the case. But it is dragging out a lot, and I'm not sure if it's more or less the same outcome as like if having a computer with just a CPU and adding a computer with a GPU. I don't know if it's just that type of change. I don't think it's possible that it will be as big as LLMs have been, but currently I'm cautious about it. But it's not. I can be wrong. I have been wrong about many things already. But yeah, robotics and general automation. And yeah, Hmm?
Energy or
energy.
energy production.
Yeah, energy is a huge one. And I also wrote down drones. Um, I think this is the war of the futures will be fought with drones. I think that we completely revolutionized war, and from now on it will never be the same again. I think that's why I wrote down drones. And with that I mean all autonomous technological type of warfare. So if you have cars and RC boats or whatever, anything is in the category of drones as long as there is no human inside it. Mm-hmm.
What about nanotechnology?
No, I write it down. I don't know. I think my stance on it or my impression on it is similar to trains, for example. In the beginning, the train was some slow moving thing, and then we made iterative progress until we now we have high speed trails which can travel well above 400 kilometers per hour. And I think nanotechnology is the same thing, just in material science. I don't know of any completely revolutionizing nanotechnology that changes everything. But I'm pretty weak in material science, so it might just be ignorance on my part. But I think it's just the difference between nanotechnology and normal technology is more of a category difference and less of a magnitude difference, that one is vastly superior than the other. That's my understanding, but yeah, it's not my field. Also, I think no, not necessarily. I thought nanotechnology might require big production lines, and they may be more important on global trade. And I have the suspicion that global trade will be lesser and or more expensive as a consequence. So nanotechnology may suffer from it, but this is probably not true. Nanotechnologies could probably be produced locally. Yeah, with the production monopolies, I put computer chips there because this is the most impactful one, in my opinion.
One technology I find particularly interesting is brain-computer interfacing.
Yes. What do you think will change between that and a normal keyboard and display? What will be the big addition that this allows, which the display and keyboard can't provide?
First of all, there is no need for any clumsy keyboard or computer within your proximity. So the kind of brain-computer interfacing I envisage is one where you can walk the street and talk to your computer, talk to your LLM, do your Googling directly from your brain without needing to be close to a real computer or anything like that.
How is that different? I've read a book on. We'll quickly show this one with the second copy image. This one, The Art of Game Design, and one. I will quickly take a picture and upload it here because it was. I think it's pretty interesting and it doesn't take all that long. I will be quickly FK. So I'm back with the headphones and microphone. Now I have to quickly find what I mean. Yeah. now I have the picture on my computer, and oh, that was not smart. I will have to cut it out in hindsight. Oh, no, it doesn't matter. I don't record the screen for my stream, so that was not visible to anybody except you two. Copy image. So here, this one. The art of game design. I can highly recommend it for everybody vaguely interested in producing something that somebody else consumes. Here, this chapter was about where is your game played, and then it differentiates between. Can I can zoom in. It differentiates between public venues and private venues. It's a Venn diagram with two circles. In public places is the arena, like for the theater and the museum, and they differ in how interactable stuff is. I'm not sure anymore. I forgot what the difference between the arena and the theater are. But the museum is obvious. It's you go to some place and then perhaps alone or in a group, and then you look at the object to be observed, and you can also interact with it to a limited degree. Theater is you go to some place where people perform something. Arena, I forgot what this is. Then in the crossing between public venues and private venues is anywhere. So, for example, let's take these smartphone games, which you can go into a group with your friends, and then you can race with each other, like these 2D side-scroller games where you have to race from one end to the other end, and then you can throw down bananas so that the other guy slips or have a boost or whatever. And then it's just, these are anywhere games. Then the playground is, for example, jumping rope, or if you have a soccer field, or if you have some object which you can climb on, stuff like this. And then the gaming table is... this one would be, for example, if you're not at the library, but let's say you have a game shop, and there they have a table where you can play tabletop games or something like this. So you go to some semi-public venue, and there you meet with people and you do stuff. And then there is the reading nook. That's, for example, if you have a very comfortable place in your apartment, or in it could also be in the garden, or on a bench at the edge of the city. It could also be outside, but yeah, it's like a place where you isolate yourself and you interact with something out of enjoyment. Then the workbench. The type of games which are workbenches is, for example, CS:GO or whatever. It's essentially, these are the places where you want to do something complex, and where you have to concentrate, and where it actually takes effort to achieve something. And then the tekken-dog, can you say how it has to be pronounced? I'm always a bit unsure here with this word. The hearth, or hearth. Yeah. Anyway, this one is essentially the fireplace in the house. So, and in the past, when it was winter, there was one place in the house where it was warm, and the whole family was there, and the mother was perhaps sewing some clothes, and then the father was carving a new spoon, and the child was the young child was playing with the other young child with dolls and stuff like this. Or it's like just a place where people gather and do stuff. And for example, Nintendo games like Mario Kart or whatever, or split screen computer games are games which you play there. And the thing which you described, Pointman, is Neuralink allows to do the anywhere games more fully. But I think this is a thing which smartphones already do very well. And I don't think that improving that in a significant. I mean, of course, Neuralink will improve stuff quite a bit, but I don't think there will be a big change in effects. But I may be wrong. Sorry for
I
having. Yeah.
don't you think that it's a difference, that there's a difference between pulling my phone out and looking something up while I'm in the middle of a conversation, or just connecting my brain really quickly with the internet and looking it up while I'm in the conversation? Because the person opposite me cannot tell whether I am now, looking this up or whether I have this actually in my proper memory.
I think it makes some difference, but not that much. But also, I think there is a big issue about bandwidth. And a good way to judge how good the bandwidth of a person is how fast they can read texts or listen to things when when they encounter new information. And so there are people who can. I know of at least two people. No, I don't know them personally. I know them via YouTube and stuff. I know these two people who can easily go past 5 times speed. Like they can read very quickly. I can listen to, on a good day, 3 times speed. Or if somebody is a very low talker, I can also I can go beyond that. But if I encounter genuinely new information, I have to go by 1 time speed because I just can't process enough speed. And also when I'm reading, not necessarily in reading because I'm not that fast of a reader, but in often the limiting factor is not the interface speed. Especially if I want to do something productive, then it's the thinking speed that's the issue. And so speeding up communication via interface that is not visible, I don't really know what the big difference is with Neuralink or equivalence. At least not in the aspect when it comes to us wanting to communicate with it. I think when it comes to it observing our behavior and analyzing it, there it's obviously a big difference. But yeah, that's I don't know. That's as far as I can tell.
You're making an interesting point with the bandwidth. So are you saying that, suppose I'm in conversation with someone and this person asks me something and I don't know it, so I have to do my brain-computer interfacing first, that the person in front of me would then be able to tell that I was doing the brain-computer interfacing.
I have a question.
Because of the low bandwidth.
Now, let's say I ask you something and you have to look it up or you have to think about it. Is it visible? I think in most cases, yeah.
But that's my question, right? Is it still then distinguishable between brain-computer interfacing and just brain only?
No, it's I don't think the outside observer can distinguish the two. But if you start looking, I think it's a it may end up be the similar thing to let's say I talk to you and the conversation to you seems boring, and then you pick something up, and then you start following that thread in your own mind, and it is independent of the conversation, and then I notice, oh, I may have lost you. I think it would just look like this then, but I don't. Yeah, it's also I have to say, I personally don't mind not knowing stuff or not knowing stuff for the moment, and I think outsourcing our knowledge to other places. I think there is a value in deferring, saying I don't know at the moment. Let me look it up later when I have more time. And so I think it will reduce these situations where you can say this, and you will have more of a TikTokification of truth verification, if you know what I mean.
Can you explain that TikTokification of truth verification?
I mean, if you do it during a conversation in a way that you cannot see it as an outsider, then you cannot say for let's say, if I'm right, I like YouTube conversation in the comment section, because there I can see the comment and then I can take 2 hours to respond to it, and I can go look stuff up, and then I write stuff down, and then I know when I read through it again, I think, oh, perhaps this is a bit of a weak point. I should go double check it, and I double check it, and then I notice, yeah, it's not quite what I meant. I have to reword it or drop it entirely, and then that takes 2 hours depending on what I write, and it has taken me longer at times, depending on how invested I was and how long the comment got. But I mean, this is something which you can do, or you can also say, let me look it up, and then you read a whole book about it and then go back to it later. But if you have to do it during a conversation in real time while paying attention to what the other person is saying so that you don't lose it, then the whole the best you can do is ask ChatGPT, can you give me a paragraph answer on if that is true and if there is a study backing it up? And then it will give you a 1 paragraph answer. And you have interacted with LLMs long enough that you know that the way you ask a question will bias the answer. And so then then that means instead of having let's say a 3-page investigation, you will manage to put in a 1-paragraph investigation. And so your truth verification will automatically be much more shallow and much more outsourced to whatever you consider a trusted source. And so that's what I mean with TikTokification. Like the TikTok, you have 30-second videos, and that's it. And then you watch the next 30-second video. So, does that make sense, what I just described?
Yeah, so for me, this just raises more questions.
That's good.
So, if the person opposite you is increasingly struggling to differentiate between the true you and the augmented you, is that not the end of all meaningful social interaction?
Did you just criticize social media as a whole?
Yeah, I'm very critical of social media.
Yeah. I find I agree, and I use ChatGPT in my conversations with people, or at least in some conversation with people on YouTube or whatever. But it's always, I write stuff down, or I'm already, let's say, 5 comments into the conversation, and then I want to see, do I look at it in a more biased way, or do they look at it in a more biased way? And then I copy the whole conversation into ChatGPT about, say, person A, person B, and I don't identify myself with either A or B, and then say, can you give an analysis on this conversation so far? And then it will give an analysis, and then it cannot say, yes, you are doing good, you do a good argument. It can't do that because it doesn't know which one is you. It probably can speculate based on previous writing styles and stuff, but yeah. Anyway, it is less likely to do it. And then I can start in my own, and then I can try to figure out the other position and say, okay, yes, this person is doing a bad representation of their position. Can you give me a Steelman version of it, which an expert would say? And then this also contributes why sometimes writing back to other people may take a while. But this I always use LLMs in this way. But other people are just saying, oh, this person wrote this response. I don't know how to respond. Can you respond for me so that this is the outcome? And then, then it's not really the person anymore. They just, you talk with a LLM that represents the ideology of that person and not this person themselves. That's how I see it currently. How do you see it?
Yeah, excellently put. With so many things in life, it's not about whether you do it, it's how you do it. It's not whether you use LLMs, it's how you use LLMs.
Mm-hmm. Do you, tekken-dog, what is your opinion on the conversation so far? What do you think of augmented realities? Computer brain interfaces?
Oh, well, I was thinking, like when they first get implemented, it'd be basically like just a very expensive pair of meta glasses. But I was wondering in the future, I don't know how long it would take, or if it's just pure fantasy, but if it's not only giving you information, but getting information from you and transmitting that to other people with a computer brain interface about things like your emotions and your feelings at the time, or even so far as something akin to telepathy. How fast are people that have this, how fast can they interface and communicate without even having to communicate verbally? And if it was able or ever got to that point, I think people who had it would just kind of create their own highly productive or fast moving society, and people that didn't get it would be left behind.
I think that's not true because of bandwidth. I think the limiting factor is not conversation speed or how well we can communicate. I think the limiting factor is our intellect and our capability of doing empathy. And so if we now know the emotions of the other person better, I don't it certainly will affect some people positively. But imagine now having, I mean, there are Facebook groups where women write down all their dates they had with men and give lists and rankings of the men they dated, to the point that it's almost doxing. And then it's like if you're in this city and you dated one woman, then you are in a secret list of all the women, and they can slander you all they want and you're not even aware of it. And if Now these women had access to the emotions of every man that walked past them. I don't think that's a good thing, and I don't think that it will make create a high-speed society. I think it will create a high dysfunctional society. And also, I fear most in that aspect. I don't think it will improve things all that much for most people. I think the qualitative difference won't be all that much, but they will now, companies will then be able to place ads directly into your brain, and they will be make much more accurate customer prediction, and they will be much better at custom tailoring propaganda to you, or whatever,
That's,
shaping
that's some-
forces for to people. Yeah, that's my
something
worry.
else I was thinking of too is like the Amazon is already great at putting something I'm interested in on the front page when I open it, you know, like how if it went so far into the future that it is basically reading your thoughts and knows what you want before you do, and then you walk into a store and there's a robot shows up holding the thing you wanted right at the door, and you don't even have to go into the store, stuff like that. But yeah,
Right?
I agree with you. I don't think it would be ultimately a good thing.
I mean, it won't just do it when you're in the store. It will do it as the first thing when you're in the morning when you wake up. It will probably also put stuff in your dreams in the night while you're asleep. So it's at least I think that's the much bigger thing, and I don't think but yeah, perhaps I'm underestimating the amount of information that we can communicate, and the amount of, or to say it in Warhammer 40k language, perhaps I underestimate how much our weak flesh is limiting us and how much a mechanical body would improve us. Perhaps I'm underestimating that aspect, but based on my experience with most people, the flesh is not the limiting factor. It's unless you count the brain and the worldview and empathy skills and stuff like this also as flesh. But the LLMs have these as well. So yeah. So I personally don't think neural networks will be that big of an improvement. But I may be wrong.
I have a question to you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any conditions under which you would connect your brain with a computer?
I think it's the same question as, are there any condition in which you would put a sports watch with a blood and everything monitor on your on my hand, because I've never worn one, and I think I'm much more open to do it when I know there is an open source one where all the information stays local, and only the thing I want have a communication outside. That's when I would be open to it. And of course, if I can't participate in any way, if I were to be teleported into a sci-fi world where it is required to be a legal citizen to have one, that's then I would probably also have one, but I don't know. That's difficult to say.
What about you, tekken-dog? Any conditions under which you would interface with a computer?
If it was like if I could do it and then like unplug it, like Matrix style or something, and like a a computer at work or a video game and like plug in and then okay, I'm done now and unplug it and there's no when I shut it off, it's off, and when I'm not connected, it's not still reading my thoughts. Yeah, I think we do that already, anyways. It's just on my gaming console and in my phone. it's it's attached to me already. It's just not in my brain.
I guess now you have to answer it, Pointman.
I think both of you have made excellent points. So safety for me is not negotiable when I put something into my body. Maybe just one point to add. If you think about it like a medical device, and think about all the clinical trials that, for example, the COVID vaccines had to go through, and all the regulation that comes with that. First, you have to show that it's safe in animals, and then and then in humans. So this is an extremely capital and time-intensive process. And until that is done, I'm not putting this into my brain, I think.
So you really meant safety, not security. I corrected it to security because security is more like that data isn't stolen, and safety is more that it doesn't cause hazards. And we both brought security issues, and then you actually meant safety probably because you brought up animal experiments. I personally think that if they come, they will come from Elon Musk type person, and so it will be like the electro scooters, which are from 1 year to the next, suddenly they are everywhere, and then in hindsight, lawmakers will have to figure out a way to regulate it anyways, and that also obviously means that it will come with all the security risks that putting your ID on the internet come with. And there, of course, I think there are safety, or I think there are prosthetics. Like for example, if you have a missing arm and then there is an artificial arm, and then you can connect that artificial arm to your nerve cells and they communicate, and then you can use it like a real one. I think that one would be a brain computer interface, which I am perfectly fine with because everything stays local. But yeah. Mm. Yeah, let's keep technology as it is now for a moment. And next is politics. The least controversial issue of these all. No. I have 4 points here. One, as far as I'm aware, currently the main global battle is fought between America versus China. I think the Iran war and Russia, Ukraine, and everything can be viewed through that lens, and it is the underlying. It's essentially every war that is doesn't have America or China involved is more or less. Not every war is just American or Chinese henchmen. There are also local wars as well, or regional wars. But like all the big ones are essentially America and China fighting. Let's just How should I do? Yes. Um, then another one which seemed to be a big issue is not from what are big established powers, but what are the sneaky powers that want to undermine everybody. And the biggest two which come to mind here are the Jews and Islam. And I think the Jews, it's obvious, everybody talks about them, and Islam, a lot of people also talk about it. But if you look at how much Qatar, for example, donates to American education system, and for some reason, all the liberal students are always on the pro-Islamic side when there is a conflict between somebody Islamic and somebody not non-Islamic, then there is a suspicious connection, in my opinion. So I think these are, when it comes to global powers, the big two fights. And then geography. This is a big one. Here, I'm not sure if I brought that one on the channel already, but there is a war professor, or I forgot what her title is, but is it Sarah Payne? Let's quickly make true copy link address. I think is it capable of embedding links? Add link, edit, insert. No, I think I've seen it embed images before, like the thumbnail or whatever, or the whole video, but no. So then let's quickly copy the thumbnail over that you can see who I'm talking about. Copy image. Her. I think I watched one or two talks of her. She is a professor at the American Military Institute where they research military tactics and stuff like this. And her point is that there are marine powers and there are continental powers, and yeah, they essentially fight different types of wars. England and America are two very prominent examples of marine powers, and it's essentially their main focus is global trade, and their battles are beating people into submission so that they are willing customers. And the continental powers, Russia is a good example, and China as well, and the Osmanic Empire and stuff like this. And there they don't have the ocean as a border, but they have habitable land as a border, and so they have to fight wars in these places. And that means that they have much more focus on protecting their capital. Yeah, I think geography plays a huge role in what strategies countries take so that they can be defensible. And yeah, Switzerland and World War II is also a big, or Switzerland and pretty much any war we fought, we used the terrain to our advantage. So here, let's call them whales are the marine empires, and elephant are the continental. So, oh, Wales is there a H somewhere? Yeah. And the third one, or the last point, I wrote down here is how successful was their military, or is their military currently, and or how successful was it in somewhat recent history? Because for example, let's take Muslim armies again, because I have focused some of my time on Muslims. They have been very successful pre-industrial revolution and very unsuccessful post-industrial revolution. And if we look at America, America never fought a real war. They just had, a real war where their own land was threatened. They always had skirmishes in in foreign places, and many of them they've lost. And Russia has a lot of experience with big ground troops, and so it's like there are certain countries which are very militarily strong. There are countries which were in the past very strong, like England, but currently England has like one ship that is usable, and so yeah, that's. I think that's when it comes to politics, that's a very important factor. So here are the ones I thought of. What can you think of?
Financial systems or the
While you gather your thoughts on what you want to elaborate on, I will quickly write down corruption level. What do you mean with financial system? How well it is set up, or which strategy or which economic school they follow, or what do you mean?
a global financial systems more accurate than the inside of that. I'd put the dominance of the dollar, or the dollar as the reserve currency.
Think what you say sounds to me like each currency has an alignment to some economic zone or whatever, and then the strength and reliability of that economic zone they are a part of. Do you mean something into that direction?
I mean, how the entire world runs in one way or another on the dollar.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So maybe in addition to military powers, militarism. So this is about the mindset of the people. Are these people willing to go to war? Because now, although Germany is now investing heavily in defense, there's a big question mark about whether or not the German youth is willing to defend their country.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And here also diversity as our strength is not necessarily helpful if the diverse people don't view the country of residence as their home country. Mm. I think politics is a bit of a difficult one to say, to have predictive things, because it can relatively quickly change. I mean, it doesn't have to. Some things have been stable for quite a while, but for like medium to long term prediction of the future, I'm not sure how. Politics seems to be a bit of a difficult one.
You say under military powers also, how would you say it? Not just how your population is willing to defend your country, but how willing or likely are they to want to attack someone else?
Yes, fair point.
What'd you call it? Adventurism, colonialism? I don't know.
Yeah, that's imperialism. But yeah, that's true. I guess since we're here already, the it is often thought of as a military, as in this army versus that army, but there are more ways of being violently offensive, like for example guerrilla warfare or distributed terror networks or stuff like this.
Cyber war.
Yeah, cyber war.
Economic war.
How it I is that cyber war. Oh yeah, it's at economic. And the figure. That's also, especially if we talk long term, that is definitely an issue as well. And there are currently genocides and demographic replacement happening all around the world, so we cannot leave that out. I guess ideological war would be that can be through 8 programs, internet. Yeah. I think corruption level could be formulated differently. Because here I want to also add over regulation. Can also, I think that's a big issue in certain countries where they have so much regulation that it's almost impossible to create a company. And if you can't create a company, then how can your GDP rise?
Right. So this is more an issue of domestic politics. All the
Yes.
above we might classify as foreign politics.
You mean the whole thing? Or
Yeah, everything besides corruption levels, political restrictiveness, I mean.
you mean everything else this is domestic here, or what do you mean?
Foreign.
This is all foreign, and this is domestic.
Hmm.
I mean, currently I have not split it up as 2 separate things. Just happens that I think the future of no, I would say the economic school is also domestic.
That
Which
is true.
economic school you're part of, and the geography impacts domestic. It impacts how you set yourself up while being aware of what is around you. So that could also be counted as domestic, but or something in between, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's just keep it like this. Maybe one point I would like to add is radicalization.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the population. If I set although I do find it a bit difficult to define, because radicalization seems to, at least in part, be compared to a neutral state, and depending on what you consider a neutral state, completely different things can be counted as radical.
That's the idea of the Overton window.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would nonetheless keep it
Yeah,
because there will always be an Overton window, and we've always had it.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I also said I think at least in part it is, because I think there is some objectivity to it as well, but I don't think we I am not yet prepared to figure that out. But I added tribalization. I think societies with tribal thinking have completely different politics and outcomes than societies without tribal thinking. And things that are not tribal can be communal or collectivist or individualist or whatever. But I think tribalization is a unique thing in its own that makes things specifically worse compared to all the others. That's why I want to highlight it separately. Do you agree with that, or withhold opinion?
I fully agree.
Mm-hmm.
Tribalization leads to vastly different politics than, let's say, an inclusive and non-identitarian approach.
Mm-hmm. But I would say it does so in a way that even, for example, nationalist collectivist societies, or I would say there is a YouTuber called Homath, and one of his videos he analyzed levels of thinking, and the lowest level, all you can think about is like your instinctive desires, and if one of these appears, then you just follow them, and you don't go beyond that. And then at some point you notice there is community, and then at some point you notice that there is stuff beyond or whatever. And I think tribalization is a very low level on this levels of thinking, and it causes unique problems that both individualist inclusive societies, or individualist societies, inclusive societies, and or also collectivist societies like China or Japan or whatever, like all of these are on a higher level and allow for more pleasant societies than tribalized societies can. I think these are, it's not just compared to the Enlightenment project, it's compared to pretty much most other systems. It's my claim.
Right, so that includes Confucianist China,
Yes.
Hinduist India, and so on and so forth.
I think India is diverse enough that they have some places where there is very tribalized, but yes. Yeah, it's I personally consider that a uniquely bad system. Well, of course, I mean, I personally believe anarchy in a way that Haiti or whatever it has it. That's on a similar level. But yeah, so I don't want to say it's the only one which can be that bad, but I think once this enters a society, it will make prosperity difficult long term. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like also from an economics point of view, if everyone is just how should I say? No, I cannot say that because in economics, selfishness is considered good. At least in mainstream economics.
The issue is tribalization or tribalism is not selfish, at least not in the way that individuals in an individualistic capitalistic society are selfish. Tribalization is this guy is from my tribe, so I will vote for him, I will hire him, I will. So it's is it nepotism? It's
In-group preference.
yeah, it's a binary extreme in-group reference. I mean, some level of in-group reference is not an issue, but if you go with it all the way, and if somebody insults some random stranger who is part of your tribe, and then you go on a full blood feud against them, or if there is one Somali I've heard in one American state there was a Jew who abused the Somali tribalism, and then he went to all the different Somali tribes and say, hey, vote for me, I'm not that Somali, I'm not from that Somali tribe, and then they all voted for him because they were against the other Somali tribes, and then he used that to used essentially just ethnical identity as a way to gain political power and stuff. So I mean this level, and I don't think this type of thing is considered something positive in economic theory.
Economists don't usually deal with such questions because they think that all humans are selfish and isolated entities pursuing their own self-interest. So that the notion of a group is not really there in mainstream economics. But I fully agree that tribalism would not be good for the economy. Because then you like, for example, think about hiring decisions. If you hire someone because they're part of your tribe and not due to their qualifications and credentials, that is not efficient.
I just recently heard that Indian air companies, or like the airways or whatever, they are notoriously have the people in that business think that, or say that a lot of Indian pilots don't actually have a pilot license. They have achieved it through scammy methods, and so a lot of them are not really qualified, and the only reason why they got it is because they were part of the right tribe. So yeah, that's and also the Indians, or certain type of Indians, of course India is a very diverse place like I said before, but certain types of Indians are also abusing the how is it called, HB visa, or like they are abusing it to get into the America, and then only hire Indians, and then take over a lot of high-paying jobs in America, and take away these jobs from local people. And so you don't make many friends if you do that, but it can be efficient to spread your ethnicity or your tribes. And also that doesn't necessarily have to be on ethnic level. It could also be on ideological level. I mean, everybody, I can imagine, for example, communists or Nazis or neo-Nazis or whatever, they will much more likely hire somebody who shares their ideology, and then they can make one company or one place or one whatever can make it more homogeneous on based on their ideology, and then that isn't necessarily ethnic based. But yeah, that's why I put that one here separately as opposed to all the others. Let's go to the last point. Here I have as a first point, since we want to predict future, how stable is it? Oh, I needed these. How stable is it? And then how productive is it? I think these two are important, because if you have a system that is very productive but it self-destructs after one generation, then it's useless. Or if you have a one where it's very stable but it creates economic dead zones, that's also pretty useless. And then here, let's put it as a subcategory. How well does it allow for high fertility? So if the, for example, the Chinese education system is good for creating productivity, but it's bad for creating fertility, because the genders hate each other and they don't have time and money to create offspring. So that's why they have such a low fertility. And here it's not just producing stuff for self and producing stuff for internal trade. And then is there a ethical flaw with it? For example, here I would say the does it, one example would be, does it require ignorance and is all to work? That would be one critical flaw. If as soon as somebody has a conversation with somebody who believes a different thing, if those people always leave, then that is not a good ideology. And I had another thing which I thought of, but I have forgotten it. Yeah, these are the things which I thought of when it comes to ideology. Do you have ideas? Oh, yeah.
Well, how happy does it make the followers?
Yes. Is it for the followers? Yeah. Oh, health. Let's just say health. And then does it produce competitivity, or no, competitiveness. Yeah, that's certainly, if all if everybody is doomsday once they believe it, that's not good. Happiness, help, and hope. Hope is important. And social. Makes people social, then it's good. And if it isolates them, it's bad.
Yeah, maybe as a sub point on how stable it is, you could ask how popular it is.
And I'm not sure if I should put it here as a formulated positively, or here formulated negatively. But I mean, how willing are others to cooperate with people with that ideology? Because if it is like, if it pisses everybody off as soon as they get more than coming to contact with more than two people of that ideology, then that's a critical flaw. And if it's something like people find it always pleasant to be around those people, then want to do trades with them, then that's a good thing. Let's put it at how stable is it? How yeah,
Well, same lines I was thinking of empathy. How empathetic does it promote empathy towards others?
is that a universal good?
Some, yeah.
Or is it predictive of the future? I mean, yes, as I think we as a society went a bit overboard with empathy and highlighted above other aspects, like for example justice. And so that comes again with drawbacks. I mean, if I view things from a societal Machiavellian point of view, I'm not 100% certain that empathy is a good thing that predicts flourishing of a society or doomsday. But I may be completely wrong here. Or where
Don't
would
you think that? Don't you think that empathy is a universal good? It's just a question of who we direct it to.
I mean, if I go by biblical value, I don't think the word empathy is written in the Bible. It's love or love your neighbor, and those are not necessarily the same things.
So
I'm,
I think of empathy, that's what I think about. Do unto others as you would have done unto you.
I mean, technically, there is the word empathy and sympathy. One is, I forgot again the precise definition, but one of them is like you can mirror the emotion of the other person, and the other is you can understand where they're coming from, or something like this. And I mean, if you understand people, I think knowledge is generally good. And if you can understand your customer, then you can sell them stuff better. And if you can understand your enemy, then you can be more effective at war against them. And so, yeah, but I don't think you meant it in this way.
Mm, I think in, at least in America, we've had uh, tribalization of empathy. I think the left is very empathetic to people they don't know, to the foreigner, to yes, let all of the immigrants come in, and we need to give uh, people addicted to drugs free money, and let Somalis come in and live in a five-star hotel, and then they neglect, their own family and their own uh, communities, their own social circles. And then the right has went the opposite direction, and it's all about my community and my area, and I'm very empathetic to my next door neighbor, but those people over there on the other side of the world we're dropping bombs on, I don't care.
As far as I can tell, the second one is pretty much the norm throughout the whole of human history. And the Western weird people, and I mean weird in a very specific way. I think. What does it stand for? Copy image. This is a bit too low of a resolution. But I mean, Western educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. This type of weird. This is something which essentially no society had up until very recently in the West. Now I speak large scale, of course. And so that's at least a theory that some historians hold to. I don't know if it's true.
Yeah, I think it's it's a very good theory, but I might counter with thinkers or movements that have promoted universalism prior to the West becoming weird.
I don't think universalism is necessarily a good thing, or what you mean. I think, for example, again, I always bring Muslims because I know a lot of them, but one way certain Muslims interpret Islam is peace is as if everybody just followed Allah in the way I understand it, then the world would be at peace. Therefore, I have to violently force everybody into this. And that is a universal thought. Or communism is also universal in a way that it only works if the whole world does it, or else the capitalist countries would compete them. Therefore, every country needs a revolution wherever the the government structure is overthrown and the economic system is replaced. And so I don't think universally applied, like I said in the very beginning, I'm for as decentralized and argumentative as possible, because then the structure can be the most adapted to the local situation. And if you have a universal solution, then it will fail in pretty much every place. Just hopefully not as badly as other thing, but the local adaptation will be much better at getting ideal outcomes at these places. So yeah, just because there is universalism of some kind in the past, that doesn't mean it was done in the way that us weird people think about it. But yeah, you probably know these opinions better than I do because you brought it up.
Yeah, and I mean, tekken-dog started with the notion of empathies,
Yeah.
and my point is that empathy is considered a good
Mm-hmm.
universally, but
I'm
it
not sure.
depends who we are empathetic
Okay,
towards.
yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can be very empathetic towards your family members in a very tribalized society.
Yes, but then I don't see what the point is to bring it even up. Or so it's like saying breathing is beneficial to society. Everybody breathes. The question, yeah, it's then the more interesting thing is like which way of application of empathy should I list here instead of just being empathetic, which apparently almost everybody except a few sociopaths do. Or
Yeah, so I mean, let me continue on that.
mm-hmm.
If you're saying, okay, so be empathetic towards your family members, you can also replace empathy with love or compassion or
Yeah,
understanding.
but
What about be loving towards like your neighbor? Be loving towards your countrymen. Be loving towards your fellow Europeans. And that is also, we're expanding the circle here.
yes, but I mean, if you would use a synonym for empathy, I would just react the very same way to that synonym. I think the pure fact that a certain type of emotion or mindset exists is not yet like for example, let's say here instead of saying here give a list of all ways in which humans can structure or connect with each other, or instead of saying just here in the population category, I could have written down human social hierarchies. I mean, that is a perfectly fine word. Every human, as soon as there are at least two humans, they form social hierarchies, but it's kind of a pointless observation. But if I say here tribalization is uniquely bad because whenever it shows up, it has negative effects on society, then I mean something specific which has observable effects. How correct I am is a different question, but I mean that if you say empathy or love or whatever, that is it has so many different ideas and concepts and outcomes behind it that it kind of starts to become a meaningless word, at least in this context. That's why I push back. But yeah.
Yeah, because we are trying to predict the future, and we were trying to predict the future of ideology.
Yeah, to some degree,
Um,
yes. I mean, of course, we deviate sometimes a bit, and sometimes I didn't push back when it was as appropriate as here, but here, this one is, yeah.
but I think Tekken-dog brought it up because he might think that the an ideology's ability to generate empathy might be predictive for like how productive that ideology is.
I think if
Uh,
that is true, then I would say actually the reverse, because if pretty much everybody um, uh, has empathy in their natural state in pretty much most situations, then we should highlight the few cases where it isn't the case. And David Wood, that's a YouTuber, a Christian apologist who deals Islam, and he is a diagnosed psychopath. And he said that there is also something, I have to quickly look up how it's called, but something like a social psychopath, where a specific behavior is usually a behavior that only psychopaths do, but because this aspect is so common in this culture that it got normalized to the point that even normal people who are not psychopaths do this behavior. And this has a specific term, and that would be, since empathy is something that is very diversely applicable and pretty much everybody has it in some way, it would be probably more interesting to figure out, or more predictive of something if it isn't present. What do you think of that statement?
I don't know.
When I was thinking of empathy, I was thinking as far as future predictions that, for example, like the young people not being able to get families started and not having access to homes and things. Like, I don't think the boomer generation has very much empathy towards their own grandchildren. They've hoarded the wealth and they use it for themselves. In the past, it was passed on down the generations, and now it's, my house is that I bought for $30,000 is now worth, 3 million, and I'm going to use that money for my own fun, my own enjoyment, and leave nothing for my offspring. Stuff like that. And then I think you get with situations like that, because there's a lack of empathy here, there's a reaction to it, and then you get like the rise of like the socialists or communists on this side, and then the pendulum swings back the other way, and you get less empathy from the other side. And
Mm-hmm. So it's, your thing is more about a society getting into a polarization spiral.
I think just from the satellite view of it, just from a biblical perspective, I think there's a whole lot of, on one side or the other, focusing on being empathetic towards this group and ignoring the other one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I know what you mean, and it's a issue that exists and can be damaging or cause instability. I I personally call it like polarization spiral or whatever. And I don't think empathy is necessarily the cause of it. It's just, as you probably said, it's more about it starts to be distributed differently than before. But yeah. How should we, what should I write down here in a way that we still remember it in, I don't know, a month or half a year from now when we look at this list again and talk about this topic? What kind of catchphrase or description should I write down?
Hmm. Maybe the better way is it universal? Is the
When you mean
no,
universal, do
I'm
you
thinking
mean
of
universal within this society or do you mean universal across all societies?
I'm thinking of the ideology or the belief system, like Muslims and Christians, for example. Muslims have in-group preference. You're in my religion, you're part of my group. Everybody else, depending on the power we have in this society, we treat them different ways. To a Christian, you treat others as you would want to be treated. Universal.
Hmm.
And maybe empathy is the wrong word for that. That's what came to mind.
Yeah, I'm still not really sure what I should write down. I mean, I
Rex.
generally get the idea you want to convey, but I find it hard to put it into a catchphrase.
I have an idea.
Hmm.
What about the spectrum ranging from total particularism to total universalism?
Mm. I think, yes, I am of the opinion that total universalism does not exist in practice unless everybody is forced to behave that way.
I agree, but we're talking about ideology.
Yes, fair. And so it is more of the intention of the ideology towards how a society ought to be and not how it is implemented in practice.
Ideology is a one-sided emphasis on what society should be like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. I think now it's a sentence I will probably understand later. Because I do think ideology is a simplified thought, or I think simplified concept, mental model on how to view certain topics or something like this. But ideology are not purely mind things; they are also people live by them, and then when they implement it, then it will lead to certain outcomes, and we can both judge how it looks like in theory and how it looks like in practice. And this sentence here focuses on the theory side of things. And in theory, it can be total universalism, but in practice, it is not possible.
I agree.
Yeah.
Uh,
Are you also fine with that formulation, tekken-dog?
Yep. Looks
Okay.
good.
so regarding the critical flaw,
Mm-hmm.
a theoretical question would be: is it self-contradictory?
I don't think that's a critical flaw. For various reasons. Some self contradictions are hard to notice, and you need to have thought of them very deeply to find them. And even if you describe them to somebody, it takes a lot of effort to describe them. And so, even if it is an issue in theory, it is only very few people will act on it because most people will not even be aware of it. That's one thing. Then some ideologies, they just don't care about logic. They care much more about group affiliation, or that this person of authority said so, or that this is emotionally appealing. And then I would say all worldviews or all ideologies are simplification of reality, and since we simplify, we it is obviously not the whole truth, and therefore I'm of the opinion that no ideology out there and no worldview and no religion or like no from human formulated idea construct is without contradiction. I mean, of course, if I say if A equals B, then A equals B, that is not self-contradictory, but that doesn't really describe reality much. So I think the more comprehensively you want to describe everything, the more self contradictions your description will contain. And so it is not. It is practically speaking, it's just a side effect of you trying to be. It's like at the statement. Some people try to avoid being hypocrite as much as possible, and other people say if you're not a hypocrite, then you don't have any standards at all. So if you try to have high standards, you won't be able to live up to them, but you will be closer to these standards as if you compared to if you have no standards at all. And so I don't think contradictions is an issue, a critical flaw, at least not in a way that it is damaging the long-term thriving of an ideology for a country or whatever. But yeah.
But what about outrageously and painfully obviously contradictory? Can such an ideology stand the test of time?
I would say some people truly do not care about logic. And if you create a whole population group that truly do not care about it, then it can survive a long time that way. It can outlast other empires. And that's why I think this sentence I wrote is more true to the overall question, namely, if it's a critical flaw, if it's a logical contradiction so bad that it requires ignorance and social isolation to work, then it's a critical flaw. And if it's a huge contradiction, but people can interact with everybody and they will continue to believe it and their offsprings will continue to believe it, then it's not a critical flaw in the way that it predicts future success or stuff like this. It is obviously a critical flaw if you believe in truth and seek it no matter what society around you thinks. But if we talk about future prediction, then I don't think that specifically is a factor. Do you understand why I view that?
Yes, I do. Let me though question the requirement of ignorance for an ideology to work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, many people are ignorant to certain things, and we need to be ignorant to certain things. We cannot take into consideration everything, and we need to have blind spots, and also, like avoid certain facts about the world in order to uphold our worldview.
Mm-hmm.
So I think ignorance per se is not a critical flaw for an ideology.
I think not. I agree that most people are ignorant about most of the things they believe, and even those that are particularly well read and know a lot, they still build on stuff they are ignorant about. And so ignorance itself is not the critical flaw. The critical flaw is if your idea requires ignorance to work. So, I mean, let's say there is an ideology, and as soon as they start to think about it slightly, they leave the ideology. They say, no, it's bullshit, let's go. And then this is this ideology requires people to not think about it. This is a hypothetical ideology now. And now this is, I think that has a critical flaw because it only has people in it who never question things. It forces people to not question things, and that will vastly undermine their capability of being productive and or even forming functional militaries and stuff like this. So it's either you lose all the smart people, you lose all the creative people, and if you lose enough of them, then the people who are ignorant will start to be able to know somebody who left because of this, and those people will tell them, look, I left because I found this major flaw in it and now I have to leave. And then even a person who may have never started questioning it will start to question now because they know somebody who left. And if the ideology somehow manages to keep these people from noticing through social isolation and stuff like this, then that ideology will create a community so ideologically restrictive that they will not be able to be productive in any way. So that's why that's what I meant with ignorance. It's not that ignorance is the issue, it's the if ignorance is a necessary requirement for this ideology. That's my point. Do you know what? Do you agree with that, or?
I don't know. I think that a certain degree of required ignorance is required for an ideology to work, always.
Is that your ideological commitment?
That is my own ideology. Is it does this commitment require me to be ignorant?
I mean, that's technically a self-defeater, and you are not allowed to think about this self-defeater, or else you would leave it. Or I don't know. I mean, my solution to this problem is I just don't have an issue with being. I mean, if I believe that reality is fully logically consistent, but our understanding of it is flawed, and we try to get since we can't process the raw facts and the raw data. I mean, technically, even if I have a list of numbers, that's already synthesized into a language and not anymore the original raw data. But let's say I have a list of 100 million data points. That's very close to reality, but I have no clue what it means. But if I have a spread and a bell curve and an average and stuff like this, a standard deviation and axis with units, then I have simplified reality. And due to the simplification, systematic errors are introduced, and blind spots are introduced, and biasing is introduced, and a lot of these things are introduced. But despite me introducing all of these things, I'm still more knowledgeable about reality than if I have not done that. And so I think the pure fact of us having ideologies will cause all these things, will cause logical contradictions in some way, and it will mean that we still remain ignorant to some degree. But it's yeah, I just don't care that I'm not omniscient. I probably will never be omniscient. So that's how I solve this contradiction, or this how it's called, paradox. But yeah.
Yeah.
I just saw it's already almost 9 o'clock over here in Switzerland. I think we went through all the points that I planned and fleshed it out a bit deeper than I have written. I think now we won't set up a date yet for when we want to do it, that we can do that later off screen. But I think it would be we should now select one of these points, and then next stream we will do a bit of a deep dive on it. Like we think about it a bit as a preparation. Like for example, if we want to look at studies or the statistics, or just think about how would we put structure into this topic. And then we can, the next stream, we can look at that specific topic and also do a bit of research during the stream probably as well. If we have questions, then we can look it up either on Google or your preferred LLM or Google Scholar or whatever. So do you think that's are you with me on that?
Yep.
Sure.
And what topic are you most interested in looking deeper into?
What would be the fairest way of determining the topic?
I don't care. I'm very agreeable when it comes to these things. So the fairest way, in my opinion, is the person who is most motivated about the topic can decide.
Oh, but then you're putting a lot of pressure on that person, because that person has to choose a subject that is not purely his, guilty pleasure, but also that is of interest to the others.
I can just say I'm interested in all of these topics. I don't mind going into any of these. I mean, some topics, for example, brain-computer interfaces, we already discussed a lot about it, but we did so more on our pre-existing information. So I wouldn't mind looking a bit into current stance on it, what is current capabilities and stuff. So we could. So I think we already discussed that enough. That's my thing, but I don't mind going more deep, more factual about it next time. So that would be for example, a negative example for me, or a worst case. But or I'm also not all that interested in the topic of Jews do everything bad in the world. I'm not interested in that. I prefer much more the Muslims are doing everything bad in the world. But I'm very flexible here. I don't mind. If somebody is very motivated, they can decide. And if nobody wants to put their foot forward, I will just decide for all of us.
Let me just make the point that I don't believe the Jews run the world.
You don't believe what?
Just for the record. I don't believe the Jews run the world. Just for the record.
Aha, yeah. I don't. This was not an accusation to you. This was a accusation to a random internet person that can be found in a random YouTube comment section. That was not directed to either you or tekken-dog. Just for clarification.
Thank you.
That's I was I was actually not thinking about you. I was just thinking about a person who may watch this stream later at some point.
As far as the topics, I'm in the same boat. I don't care which one we go after first or who wants to take the lead on it. If I know something about it and I get to rant about it, that's fun. If I know nothing and just get to learn something and ask stupid questions, that's fun too.
I like stupid questions. I think the one who is most motivated about specific topics may be Pointman. He's just feeling guilty about it. But this is an accusation now.
Oh, there are so many so interesting topics. But
say 5 and I will pick one, or say 3 and I will pick.
So LLMs are everyone uses them, and there are like the hottest thing at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Here.
I think fertility rates
Mm-hmm.
are very interesting because I attended like a talk with a Nobel Prize laureate on this topic.
Oh, nice.
So I might be able also to share some interesting input there. And when it comes to can you slow down politics? What do we have? America versus China. I mean, that's a good one,
Mm-hmm.
and it also is adjacent to many of the points we raised
Mm-hmm.
underneath. The financial system, right? Sort of what is sort of the dominant economic school of thought, and what does it mean to have the dollar as the reserve currency? How will this evolve, and where did this even come from?
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, sort of the very practical question of the stability of an ideology.
Mm-hmm. I think when you take this list, LLMs, I have used them in some ways. I can probably make a more educated guess than an average person, but I'm by no means an expert. Fertility rate would be probably of the ones you listed I'm most knowledgeable about, like relative to me, my knowledge, not compared to experts. What did you say? America versus China. I think that one would be a good starter because it touches, it's less specific and touches more topics. I have a position that I'm pretty happy with, but it is more about I just listen to a specific corner on the internet plus a few other voices, and this is what I interpret out of the data. But this probably would give the most discussion. Then
So
economic,
even Europeans know America is the most interesting thing.
yeah. And then economic system, I will probably be just a moderator there because you both of you know more about it than I do. But yeah, and then here was the financial system, and then critical flaws. Did you say stability or? Yeah, I think you said stability. I have not yet formulated a stance on this, or I don't yet have a stance on this as a formulated one, which I'm happy with, but I certainly have some knowledge about it. So those are mine. I personally would prefer the fertility rate. That's my favorite of these. And I think the tekken-dog's favorite. If I will now make an accusation to you, I would say you would probably like the economy one the most. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Nice. My
I didn't want to say yeah because I didn't want you to be right, but you're right.
yeah, my predictive power is not all that bad. Yeah. So let's toss a coin or a USB stick. Two holes is financial thing, and no holes is the fertility. Okay, it was the fertility one. Nobody is witness. So let's talk about fertility next time. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
Yes.
Nice. So I will now quickly check if there is a comment in the stream. No, of course not. And I'm the only viewer. So I guess
Yeah, I'm viewing.
I guess I can close the stream now. Goodbye.